The landscape was so different back then. The game of cricket, steeped in tradition, had a bright future. And that future, it seemed, was 5-day test matches. England in 1975 would challenge the established thinking. During an untypically warm British summer, the dynamics of the game would be altered irreversibly.
That's when one-day cricket really took off, because everyone remembers the 1975 World Cup final.
Yet here was a formula sceptics viewed as a threat to the game as they knew it, an event which would compromise the philosophy, the very ethos of cricket. The 60-over competition was described by one journalist as the most ambitious innovation since the legalisation of overarm bowling. But it turned out to be a bigger success story than anybody could have imagined.
England was the ideal place to hold it, of course, with the diaspora of the West Indies and India and Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Everyone was there. They had support, and all the grounds would be full.
And so, bathed in bright sunshine, the first ever World Cup began. England's Dennis Amiss, the first man to reach 3 figures.
We knew that one-day cricket was the way forward, and it was just fine-tuning it and getting it right. I think the World Cup has been good for the game.
India's Madan Lal played in that first ever World Cup fixture and remembers a sense of excitement and nerves.
And that's it, swinging away.
It's a whole new experience, you know. At home we didn't play that much one-day cricket, and the people were not expecting us to win anything. So we were just new to one-day cricket. We were just analysing the whole things, how to play this one-day game.
England were quick to embrace a more adventurous approach, but the Indians had different ideas.
We got a 300 on, I think, didn't we? And Gavaskar came out and blocked.
Gavaskar batted 60 overs and was not out at the end for 36. I don't think he quite understood what the concept of limited overs cricket was all about.
One Indian supporter delivered his own personal message of protest, but Sunil Gavaskar himself was making a stand.
He was just protesting that we got too many runs, and there we were, all the fielders, because there's no restrictions on how many you could have out on the boundary. So we had a pretty defensive field.
Techniques and strategies would quickly evolve. The Australians decided to stick with what they knew, employing test match tactics throughout.
It was new, we didn't know what to do. And like I know that Ian Chappell used to say to us, if we get through the first 15 overs and we've got 30 runs on the board, without a loss of a wicket, we've done well. And God, these days, if you haven't got 100 runs on the board after 15 overs, there's something wrong with the batting.
Alvin Kallicharran would launch a fierce assault on Dennis Lillee at the Oval to announce the West Indies as a team to be respected.
Magnificent hit, picked up from roundabout leg stump.
Many of their squad were playing English county cricket, so had an understanding of the conditions.
Beautifully timed, and that's really hit the fence hard.
They were led by a player who'd come to be captain in the most unexpected of circumstances.
I'd made 100 against Yorkshire in the Roses game at Leeds, and I was having a drink with the guys, so they're just celebrating. And a fellow called Howard Booth said, "Congratulations, Clive." I said, "Oh, it was a good pitch," and so on. And I thought he was talking about the game. He said, "No, I'm not talking about the century you made." I said, "You just be made captain of the West Indies." So the journalist knew before I did.
Clive Lloyd was able to bring together the disparate bands of the West Indies like no captain before or since. His personality encouraging performances from the likes of a young Viv Richards, amongst others.
I was a young fella, I hadn't captained anybody. So here I was captaining Lance Gibbs and Ron Cannon, fellas that I looked up to as a youngster. And then we had this band of young players, who were now coming into, Viv Richards was not a big name yet. Gordon Greenidge wasn't a big name. Roy Fredericks was still coming through. So the point is that we had guys who had somebody there who they trusted. And we were getting into this winning habit.
Given the support and appetite for the game, England would turn out to be the perfect host country for the first World Cup. Come the semi-finals, the locals were silenced by a familiar adversary, but less familiar face.
Now it's Gary Gilmore, his second over of the day to Amos. Well bowled, and that's out! What a good delivery!
To be given the conditions to bowl in that morning was freakish, really, and I ran in and the ball was swinging a mile, and the English batsmen who had been brought up on those conditions just had no idea in the long run, and I was the ball was swinging back in and they were just letting the thing go and just whacking them on the pads, and Bill Alley and these guys were doing the right thing and putting their finger up.
And that's a brilliant catch, a beautiful catch by Marsh, taking it almost out of Ian Chappell's hands.
We just went around all over the place. You just thought, batting, my God, this is hard work. And, how are we going to get a total here? It was just one of those heavy, hazy days, and it just went all over the place.
I was a young upstart who probably thought I was pretty good, and things went my way, and they just kept going that day.
And he's out! Another one gone, Alan Knott.
Gary Gilmore would be the unlikely hero, with England bowled out for 93.
Blokes like Dennis Amos and Barry Wood, Greggy, a bloke called Frank Hayes, Mike Dennis, all should have been experienced in what was going to happen on that morning, and they failed the test.
The tournament brought together the 6 established test-playing nations, along with Sri Lanka and East Africa. All the teams stayed in the same hotel, and there were just 15 matches. In the second semi-final, the West Indies were at their ruthless best, destroying New Zealand with a performance of skill and a newfound discipline.
Oh, and that's magnificently caught by Rohan Khan. What a magnificent catch.
Our players were not as professional as they should have been by playing county cricket. That helped us quite a lot, because you were batting probably 6 times a week. In the old days, those guys, 6 times, you'd play the whole season of cricket in the West Indies. So their professional attitude was a little bit different. We were brought up in a different era. We had to sort of get our players to inculcate the right sort of habits.
What a great streak.
We had come from 2 years ago, we were bottom of the ladder, more or less. And here we are in the final of the first World Cup ever. And we were about to beat the best team in the world.
As it turned out, the watching public were about to witness one of the finest matches ever to grace the famous Lord's turf. Much has been written about the 1975 World Cup final, but one man had the best seat in the house.
It was a great honour for me. It's the best match I've ever stood in. No doubt about that. All the test matches, all the one-day internationals, that 1975 World Cup final was the best cricket match that I stood in because it had everything.
The favourites West Indies were backed by a noisy and colourful support, making Lords feel more like Bridgetown, Barbados. The Australians, ambivalent before the start of the competition, warming to the task with 3 early wickets.
And there's a great hook shot, it's out of the ground. Oh, well, what bad luck that was. Played a magnificent shot, trod on his wicket, hit a 6.
Well, the point is that we were struggling. We had lost 2 wickets, 3, and I got dropped at mid-wicket by Ross Edwards.
And he's dropped him. I'll let off there for Clive Lloyd.
But after then, the ball just sort of hitting the bat rather sweetly. I said, well, this must be my day, and it continued. And I had Rohan Kanai at the other end, a senior person, someone who, you know, I had a lot of respect for, and we just took it from there.
What a great shot! What a great shot! Stood still almost and hammered it away through mid-off for 4.
Typical Clive Lloyd came out and just manhandled the Australian attack. When the West Indies were in a little bit of strife, but for that innings was memorable.
Straight down the ground. 51 to Clive Lloyd.
People say that my face is the same way all the time, if we're doing well or not. So they really don't know if we're in trouble. Or I tend not to let things trouble me, really, or let the opposition see that I'm in trouble. So I probably would have been a very good poker player.
The atmosphere, Lords, packed to capacity, 99% West Indian, 1% English and Australia. It was a great day, and in the end, the way it finished with us being beaten by 17 runs, the better team won.
Lloyd's 100 enabled the West Indies to post a commanding 291. The Australia reply briefly flickered, but Viv Richards was all youth and agility. 3 timely runouts.
Oh, and this must be a run out here. He must be out. Richards again. Tragedy for Australia.
Australia's last wicket pair of Lillee and Thompson kept the game alive and provoked one of the most comical World Cup moments.
And it's absolute chaos out there. Nobody knows what's happened.
Now, the crowd didn't hear no ball call, you see. And Thompson and Lillee was running in between thousands and thousands of spectators. Keep going, Tomo, keep going. How many is that we've run, Dennis? That's 14 we've run, that's 14 we've run. Some years after, I was travelling in London on a London bus, and this big West Indies bus conductor came round, first place, and I looked at him, and he had this white cap, and I thought, that looks like one of mine. And I said, excuse me, sir, where did you get the white cap? He said, white cap, man, haven't you heard of Mr. Diggy Bird? He said, this is one of his white caps. I pinched his off his head in the 1975 World Cup final, and I am so proud of this white cap.
The conclusion of the first World Cup arrived at the impossible hour of 8:42 p.m. The longest day of the year in England, the perfect timing for the West Indies.
When I took over, the West Indies were really struggling financially. The further you went into the competition, the more money your country got. And by getting to the final and winning it, it gave the West Indies a lift, and they got a lot more money and got them out of that gloomy period.
And it goes to this magnificent cricketer, and how well he and his team have deserved it.